This episode of the Answer is Yes Baja Sessions is brought to you by Baja Bound Insurance Services. Driving to Mexico? You can buy and print out your Mexican auto insurance policy online in minutes with their easy-to-use website. They also have great travel information to help you plan your trip south of the border. Visit bajabound.com.
Hello, this is Ryan Thomas, and you're listening to the Baja Sessions. Over the last 3 decades, I've lived, worked, and played from the top to the tip of the majestic peninsula of Baja California. And because of this, I've met some incredibly interesting people with equally interesting stories. And today on the Baja Sessions, we're going to chat with one of them.
Hey, this is Michael Emery of Slow Baja, powered by Tequila Fortaleza, and I'm guest hosting the Baja Sessions podcast. And today, I am pleased to share my conversation with Sarah Beck. As a young girl, Sarah began traveling to Baja with her family to escape the drizzly Oregon winters. After several trips, they decided to put down roots and move to San Juanico. A few years later, while surfing at dawn, she met her future husband and a Baja love story was born. In our conversation, she shares her passion for the people and the places that make the Baja Peninsula so unique. So sit back and enjoy the ride with my guest, Sarah Beck. And to follow this self-proclaimed Baja-loving mom on Instagram, you'll find her at A Mom's Guide to Traveling Baja. I'm delighted to be here in San Juan Capistrano with Sarah Beck. We're talking about our mutual passion for Baja, and you have the Instagram site, A Mom's Guide to Traveling Baja. Do I have that right?
That's right. Yeah,
I don't have it up in front of me. A Mom's Guide to Traveling Baja.
Yeah.
And I've just been impressed, as one Baja lover to another, I've just been impressed with your integrity and authenticity and your passion and your beautiful long form posts, and that you're down traveling in Baja with your kids.
Thank you.
And that you're posting every day, which I think is phenomenal.
I try.
So let's talk about that.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do it. Where should we start?
Well, let's start with, where did your passion for Baja come from?
Okay. Well, I have, I guess, like a pretty long history with Baja. I grew up in Montana and Oregon. My mom remarried when I was about 6 or 7, and we moved to Oregon from Montana, and we lived in the drizzly rain and snow. Well, we lived in rainy coastal Oregon, and then we lived in Bend, and my stepdad was really adventurous, and my mom's very adventurous too, and they were kind of tired of being in the drizzly rain, and we started surfing on the Oregon coast. And you know, people on the Oregon coast were talking about Baja. You'll meet a lot of Oregonians in Baja, and they all talk about the dream of, wintering in Baja. And so we decided to try that, and we went down for, I don't know, like a month, and then my parents packed us up, and next thing we knew, a month turned into a couple months, and then every winter we started spending more time down there. And we started our first trip, I think, down at the Wall, and I was maybe like 10, I think, and we all really loved it. And then the next year we decided to go all the way. We went down to Cabo, and we made friends along the way, and we're still friends with all those people. And as you do when you're traveling in Baja, and I think, as you know, when you meet people down there, we all kind of fall in love with it. So from there, my parents started looking at property. They were kind of like, we want to do this more. And so by the time I was about 14, they were really talking about moving to Todos or Los Cabos area. And we were looking pretty heavily at property in San Jose area. We were down there for months at a time. And we basically lived at San Pedrito. At that point, Cerritos was nothing. There was like a little tiny kind of hut on the cliff there. I spent months every day walking from Pedrito down to Cerritos on my own, or with my brother, just exploring, surfing. I learned how to surf at San Pedrito, boogie boarded mostly, and tried to surf. And then we met this amazing woman named Sue, and she and Teresita, who lived in San Juanico at the time, or had a place. And she said, you guys should go up to San Juanico. So we went to San Juanico, and my mom and her husband fell in love with it immediately. and they said, let's buy a place. And that was in about 94, I'd say. And so they, and we'd been camping up and down the peninsula for a few years there. And I'm like 14, and they bought a place. So it was an old Mexican house, and we kind of fixed it up as best as we could. And we went up to Oregon, and we sold our house, and we moved down there full time. I took my GED, and my brother kind of like moved on his own way. He was 2 years older than me. So he was, I think about, almost 16, 17. He decided, I think he ended up moving to Cabo. I don't know. It's kind of crazy, but we ended up staying in San Juanico, and I lived down there for about a year, and my husband ended up moving down. He was a bit older than me, but his dad was building a house on, I don't know, do you know San Juanico very well?
No, I mean, I know it a little bit. I've never been there. I drove through in the middle of the night in January on sort of a big off-road adventure, but I'm certainly well aware of the layout. I have a friend who's building a house down there, has a house, and then he's building a sort of attachment to it and sort of putting together a little surf property.
Okay.
So looking forward to going and getting some longboarding in.
It's a really special spot. I spent a lot of time surfing, as learning to surf, getting to know the townspeople, and at this point I'm like 16, and I met my husband there surfing. I was surfing at dawn, and he paddled out. He came down to finish his dad's house. His dad was building a house, and he came down to finish it, and we met and fell in love, and I helped him with the house for about a year as he sort of finished it, and we had that adventure. And he was from here, from San Juan Capistrano, so I ended up following him up here. And from that point, we ended up kind of spending a lot of time in Baja, going back and forth. And we also, traveled the globe. We've gone a lot of places over the years, and we lived in Hawaii. I've gone a lot of places. I've been to Southeast Asia and India, and I could name off a bunch of places, but that makes me sound pretentious.
No, let me just jump in for a second, because most people are already slack-jawed that your parents tossed their U.S. home away, sold the home, and moved to Baja, and you managed to get a GED and lived a life in San Juanico. And you look, well adjusted. You've got kids. You're clean, hair's combed, looking good. Middle of the day. Sorry, I'm just joking with you here. Yeah. We don't know each other well, so I shouldn't be taking these liberties with joking.
Total
but
freak.
You're not. Yeah, you're not crazy. So I just love that your parents made that leap, and obviously it instilled a sense of adventure into you.
Sure.
And you're instilling that sense of adventure and wonderment, and bringing your kids to Baja, which I did with my kids way back when. They're all in college now.
Sure.
So I have twins. When they were 2 and when my oldest was 4, we loaded up the minivan and drove on down.
So awesome.
And so I think it's obviously admirable, and that's why we're here talking. But tell me about some of those moments with your husband where you said, how can we replicate this thing?
That's kind of where I was going to get. We kind of traveled all over, and my father-in-law is really funny because he's got a house down in San Juanico. My mom and her husband ended up divorcing, and my stepdad got their house. And so my father-in-law had this house that kind of just sat in San Juanico for a while as I was finishing my degrees, and my husband was working on his career, and we were both kind of not necessarily focused on Baja. We were still going to Baja. We were still going on adventures, and maybe once a year or so, but we weren't that focused on Baja for a while. I still loved it, but it wasn't our number one focus. And then we had our family, and all of a sudden I really, really missed it. And my mother-in-law passed away from cancer, and I needed a shift. I needed it really badly. I was really dealing with some grief, and I looked at my husband right around the Christmas holiday, and we were about to go down to San Juanico with our kids and hang out at my father-in-law's house, and maybe we had just gotten back. I don't know, something. We had just maybe been down there, and I said, "What do you think about us pulling the kids out of school, enrolling them in school down in San Juanico, and going broke for a while, and you commuting?" He's a firefighter, and you commuting to work. I know it's a lot, but I could really use the change. And he's rad. He was like, okay, let's try it. And I said, we'll put our kids in Spanish immersion when we decide to come back. And so that's what we did. So that's, that's fast forwarding 20 years. And it was exactly what we needed. And that was when my passion for Baja was really like reinstilled. So we started going back down there. And I think I talk a lot on my Instagram page about the AAA map. It's my favorite map. There's a lot of maps of Baja, but that's kind of like my old trusty. And I like to like pull it out and look at dirt roads and go, oh, I haven't been down that one in a while, or oh, I've never been down that one. And thankfully, my husband's really adventurous, and you don't see a lot of him on the page.
I've noticed.
He doesn't like social media, and he doesn't like and a lot of times a lot of my videos or pictures are from like archives, right? I post every day, so you don't always see. It's not always right now. A lot of people are like, oh, you're always in Baja. I'm like, well, that was like, last summer. But he doesn't want like his coworkers or friends thinking he's in Baja all the time. So he's like, just don't even put me on the page. I'm like, well, that makes me look like I'm single or something. And he's like, that's fine. That's probably better anyway. You're going to get more followers. I was like, whatever, Jesse. So he's really funny about that. He doesn't post on his social media. He doesn't want me showing him on his social media. So he's my driver most of the time. I like to drive too, but I keep meaning to bring it up on my social media. I think I will at some point. I'm working on a website, and I would like to do a blog post about it. I did roll our car about 3 years ago between Jesus Maria and Punta Prieta, and that was a really intense experience. It was just the kids and I. If you're a real Baja fanatic, you probably have been in a car accident in Baja. You probably know what it's like. I've had that conversation with a lot of Baja freaks, like myself. It's an intense experience. It's also like I think a Baja badge, so to speak.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I did notice in a deep perusal of your Instagram that you're in the passenger seat. So I deduced that somebody was driving, and it wasn't either one of your young children. So, and you did say that you're a mom, so I was able to also deduce that it was probably your husband driving. And being a husband myself, my wife's not too keen on being included when I'm posting, so I get it.
Yeah.
And tell me about the accident. You were with your kids, and how did that play out? And what have you learned from it?
Oh, okay. So it was when we were living down in Baja. I will say this, I have so much to talk about Baja, but now that we're back, I try and like schedule every single vacation around Baja more or less. I do like to jump over to the mainland every so often, and there are a lot of other places I'd like to take the kids, which I try and do, but Baja is my passion right now, especially because I'd like to create a guidebook that encourages more moms to get down there, because I think it's such an amazing place for kids. It's like freedom for kids, and I don't think kids get the freedom of being able to walk to the store like you do anywhere else, like Baja. And so that's my big goal, is to encourage more moms and women to get down there with their kids. So I'll give a little plug for that. I don't know when it'll get done, but that's kind of my goal, is to have a website and a book out eventually. But back to the car accident. We were living down there at the time, and we were coming back up to the U.S., oddly enough, to get on a plane to fly down to southern Mexico. So I had just driven the North Road from San Juanico, and I felt really good about it. We had just gotten out of San Ignacio.
And that's the dirt road.
What's that? That's
the dirt road?
The North Road, yeah, the dirt road from San Juanico
right.
In from San Ignacio. I had just driven the salt flats. It had been a great morning. It was, if I was going to say where I was going to crash on the Baja Highway, it wouldn't have been where I crashed. But I had just gotten through past Guerrero Negro and past Jesus Maria, which is a really special spot for me. I love that point out there, Mora Domingo. I don't know if you've been out there, but I highly recommend you get out there to Laguna Manuela. It's a beautiful spot. And I had just passed a semi-truck and gotten the kids plugged into a movie and was about ready to, like, get through that no man's land there,
right,
you know.
Right,
it's a long stretch out there to El Rosario and into San Quintin. I was hoping to stay at La Mission Santa Maria, the hotel up
Yep.